Lovely, thank you. So, as I mentioned, we're very fortunate enough to have special guests here this week, DS, and I'd like to introduce Erin Nash, who's the Partnerships and Community Engagement Lead at DS. They're very generously supporting us for the next 3 months. So thank you for your commitment to fund early career cancer researchers. It's a delight to have you all here. I hope you find this a very informative session. And I'll just hand over to Erin for a couple of words. Erin.
Thank you so much, Nikki, and a warm welcome to the team from Cure Cancer. So I just want to take this opportunity to give everyone a quick update on our partnership with Cure Cancer. As Nikki said, over the next 3 months, we've actually set ourselves a goal to raise $5,000 through a variety of activities, including a barbecue, some virtual games nights, and a number of fitness events. So following this brown bag session, I'll share our Cure Cancer partnership page with everyone on Radius via Slack, and you'll be able to see what we've got planned and how you can get involved over the next 3 months. Also, if you'd like to help organise any of these activities, just want to stay in the loop, please make sure that you join the Giving Back at DS Slack channel. And last but not least, before I hand back over to Nikki, I would like to say a big thank you to Joe and Clancy, who've actually kickstarted our fundraising activities with a $500 donation, along with Nat, James and Tom, who held and spoke at the Tech Talks Design Meetup in our Sydney office last week and raised over $500. So that's bringing our fundraising total so far to just over $1,000. So well done, team.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Nikki. And yeah, back over to you. So fantastic.
Well, what a wonderful start. Well, thank you. It's lovely to have you and the whole team here. Appreciate this. It's hopefully going to be an informative session where we do several of these. So as I said, please pop in any questions. You can either just direct them to me in the chat or to everyone so they can see your questions, and I'll weave those into the conversation as we go forward. Okay. So Marlene. Now Marlene, as we have supported for a number of years now, which is an absolute delight. This year we're funding her for 2 extension grants, which have been granted by the Jennifer Eggins Trust, and we're incredibly grateful for them and their support. Marlene is based at the University of Melbourne, and her focus is on brain cancer. Brain cancer, for those that you aren't aware, affects about 1,700 Australians every year. And Marlene's research is centered really around the nervous system and how we can control and monitor what we're doing from a brain perspective through the gut, which is quite a novel approach for us not in the scientific world. But first of all, welcome, Marlene. Lovely to have you here and lovely to chat to you again. Before we talk about research, can we just start talking about you and what got you into cancer research in the first place?
Yeah, thank you, Nikki, and thank you everyone for being here today. It's great to have the opportunity to talk to everyone, so thanks for making the time. Like Nikki said, my name's Marlene. I'm, I guess, still an early mid-career researcher. It's getting on a bit in the years now, but I finished my PhD in 2013. And yeah, like Nikki said, we've sort of got a slightly different approach looking at brain cancer. We're sort of looking at how the gut can tell us some information about how brain cancer, well, how we can, different mechanisms for protecting against brain cancer and potentially leading to treatments. So I actually started my research working in the gut, which has led us to this. So my background is actually looking at gut health. So through my PhD, what got me actually interested in my PhD was looking at the nervous system in the gut. So, this is what we affectionately call the second brain. It's what gives you, those gut feelings, tells you what is a good thing to do just off the top of your head. So we've been looking at that, how that nervous system forms through development and the different components of it and what it does in terms of controlling the function of the gut. And yeah, so I've been doing that for a number of years. So I started based in Melbourne. As you can tell, it's a bit chilly down here. So I did my PhD here and then did a postdoc overseas in Belgium, in Europe. So that was a lovely interlude. And for the last few years, I've been co-heading a group down here at Melbourne Uni, which has been great. So it's unfortunately my co-lab head couldn't be here today, but it's great situation to be able to share the pain and the joys of research together. So that's I've been very fortunate to have that. So that's my basic background in research, and what sort of led us into looking at cancer was the idea that in the brain, brain cancer comes from when you have these cells that divide and grow out of control, and that leads to the formation of a tumor. And the cells that start dividing and growing that produce these tumors are a type of cells called glial cells. So there's these cells that are present just in the normal brain that are important for supporting the nerve cells in the brain. And and there's a number of different things that can make them have these mutations that make them over divide and overgrow. And what sort of got us interested in studying this is that in the gut, there's also this nervous system, and there's nerve cells and glial cells, but actually the cells in the gut, these glial cells in the gut, very rarely form cancers and very rarely form tumors. And the very few cases that are present, they seem to be very benign. So they don't seem to grow as much out of control. So this is what sort of got us into this brain-gut connection, and what led us to doing the research that we're doing today.
Lovely, thank you. Now, you've talked to me about this before, but when you first did, I was really surprised about the power of the gut. And you talked to me about how a lot of different research starts in the gut. So before we talk about the brain, can you explain why it's so important to look at the gut?
Oh, yeah. So the gut, it's sort of become a hot topic recently, the gut, and this idea of brain-gut communications. And I'm sure a lot of you might have heard about, the microbiome in the gut and how that controls a lot of different things. For example, control of, influencing our whole body's immune system. It all sort of starts from the gut. So it's sort of the gateway for things to enter the body and come out of the body. And what we put into the gut has a big influence on how our whole body and our brain functions. So there's a lot of research into how the different components of our diet, different nutrients, but also different microbes that are present have a big effect on our whole body. And this idea of brain-gut communication is really important for our general health. So it is sort of the beginning of a lot of events in the body. And what's been also very interesting for us is that if you look through evolution, what people are sort of thinking at the moment is that although we call the nervous system in the gut the second brain, it's probably actually the first brain to evolve. Because having this ability to feed and move stuff through your body and extract nutrients is actually really key for our survival. And that's probably where this idea of a nervous system actually evolved. And the brain is probably actually our second brain, whereas the brain in the gut is actually our first brain. So it's been a very interesting field to be a part of.
When we talk about gut feel, we really should listen to our gut, shouldn't we? Lovely. So on to your research, and you're talking about how the glial cells don't seem to form tumors as readily or as fast in the stomach versus in your brain. So where have you gone with your research? What have you discovered so far?
Well, we've been looking at a number of different things, and we have a couple of ideas that we think would be very interesting to keep going with. So what we've been doing is trying to look at a situation where we produce a mutation in the nervous system in the gut. So the same one that mimics some mutations that affect patients with brain cancer, and look at how that influences how those glial cells in the gut change, how that influences their behavior, and how that what that does to the glial cells. And what we've come up with so far is that we think there's probably just a number of extra protective mechanisms in the gut. So just to give you an example, so what happens is that actually a number of examples. So the first thing that we've sort of come up with is that, so for a lot of cancer-causing mutations, what happens is that a single mutation, your cells can probably handle, and things don't doesn't sort of do very much. But a lot of models of cancer, so people who, when we're studying cancer in a dish or in other animal models, what happens is that you need 2 mutations for something to actually produce a tumor to form. So, one single mutation, you've got a little bit of change in your cells. It doesn't do too much, but you need 2 mutations to really produce an effect. And what we think is that in the gut, maybe because of these additional protective mechanisms, maybe 2 mutations is still not enough, and what you need is 3. So it's sort of like there's an additional layer of protection in the gut, probably because it's that first layer of defense for your body. It's in a lot of contact with the outside world. So we think there's lots of things going on there. And 2 of the things that we think might be important for protecting these glial cells in the gut against cancer is that, firstly, it's the immune system. So the immune system is actually just incredibly important in general for protecting against cancer. I mean, probably, the immune cells are going around your body right now, sussing out cells that aren't behaving properly, aren't functioning properly, and these are probably being detected and killed off before anything bad happens. But there is a lot of immune cells present. So that is something that is, first of all, different from the brain. But we also, a lot of new studies and a lot of research are showing that in addition to just having more immune cells present in the gut, the glial cells in the gut actually play a really important role for communicating with those immune cells. So we think there's something special about the glial cells in the gut. That means that they can release factors, or and this is something that we want to actually look at further. They can release stuff that is important for interacting with that immune system in the gut, and that probably adds that extra layer of protection, so that when you have these glial cells in the gut that start behaving a bit abnormally, start to divide a bit more than they usually should, the immunes, they change the factors that they're producing, and that signals to the immune system, hey, something's going on, we need to get rid of these glial cells that aren't actually behaving like the way that they should be. So that's a really important mechanism that we really want to look at further.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. We've talked about this before, and for those of you that are new to this, cancer cells are very clever. They're very smart, unfortunately, and they also have very strong communication links. So cells that turn cancerous discuss very in their own language to other cancerous cells, and that helps them grow and mutate more. So how interesting that you've got something in your gut that's actually having its own communication that's stopping these cells dividing and becoming cancerous. I mean, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, we think there's clearly other types of cancers in the gut, like colon cancer and stomach cancer, which are gastric cancer. So they come from the epithelial cells that are lining the gut. So, the gut is not necessarily immune to cancer, but we think that there's these immune cells have this extra communication with the glial cells in the gut, and this is a really important role that seems to be seems to be present, that we are not quite sure, I guess, at the moment how exactly that's all working. And that's like Nikki said, it's the cancer cells are really smart. They're good at evading. Well, the reason why these big tumors form is that they're good at evading these protective mechanisms that the body has. So it's sort of there's subtleties there that we're a bit unsure of at the moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We've talked about this before. You know, research in many circumstances is you have a hint, you have an idea, and you have to go down that pathway, and then you find a little other problem or another divergence. You know, and for those that this is your first session with us, yourself, I know you're a little bit more senior now, but we fund early career researchers, so most of those researchers are starting right at the beginning of their careers with these innovative ideas that have never been done before, and have this little inkling that this might help be a puzzle piece to solve a jigsaw, which is a bigger issue of cancer as well. So how exciting that you've got these ideas and now you have to either prove them or disprove them to see what happens.
I hit the nail on the head, Nikki. It's just like you think something's happening and then you get led down all these different pathways about what could be happening, and it's there's a lot to do.
So let's fast forward per se and look at the future of your research. What's your aim of your current research? Is it to find a way that you can take those mechanisms from the gut and put them in the brain? Or is it looking at different personalized treatment for brain cancer? What are you hoping to achieve out of this piece of research?
So what we want to do, I think a direct way we can help is try to improve current treatments for brain cancer. So like Nikki said, 1,700 Australians are affected by brain cancer every year. And unfortunately, the current prognosis for patients with brain cancer is considerably bad. It's at the moment, only 1 in 5 patients are actually surviving beyond 5 years from their first diagnosis, which is incredibly sad statistics. So what we want to do is try to improve the treatments that are currently available for brain cancer patients. So at the moment, and the treatment for brain cancer at the moment is, first of all, surgery to remove as much of the tumour as possible, followed by chemotherapy. The largest advance that was made in brain cancer treatment was actually still 15 years ago. So it's been a long time since we've had any new treatments available. And there's a number of different treatments that are undergoing clinical trials at the moment. So there's people looking at lots of different new options, and one of the biggest areas is immunotherapy. So what this does is that people look at how to sort of use the immune system that we already have to try to target cancer cells. So you guys might have come across CAR T cell therapy, which is something that I'm sure, Nikki, you and the Cure Cancer team have heard about lots of times already through these talks. But basically the idea is that this is a therapy where they take the patient's own T cells, which are a type of immune cells, and try to direct those against the cancer cells. And what we're hoping to achieve is to identify some factors that would then help these T cells find their targets and boost their ability to enter the brain and boost the immune response, so that there's more there's better ability for this CAR T cell therapy to be able to target the tumor cells in the brain.
Yeah, look, it's really remarkable. One of our researchers also down in Melbourne does CAR T cell therapy. And essentially, for those that aren't aware what this is, and it's new, it's been around about 3 or 4 years, but you take the individual's blood, you put it in a spinner, you separate it out, you've got the T cell, and then you kind of tweak it and make it stronger, and then you transfuse it just back into the person's blood, and that it prompts immune system to work even stronger, which, you know, it's amazing to think that we could have treatments that involve our own immune system rather than drugs like chemotherapy, which are very brutal and have a horrendous amount of side effects for people as well. So moving forward then, a lot of what we do is talk about personalized treatments. And, you know, you mentioned how for the last 15 years there's really been no advancement in brain cancer treatment. What are you hoping to do? First of all, is it to get this kind of immune system built up? And then are you looking to look at potential drugs or other forms of treatment or personalized treatment? What's your kind of end goal in your research? If you have an end goal.
Right, so good question. So the first point is that, well, actually, so to jump to the end first, actually, what we want to do is, currently CAR T cell therapy is actually already being approved to target some blood cancers in Australia. They're actually in use for treatment, but for things like brain cancer, which is a solid tumor. So you've got, instead of just cancer cells floating around in the blood, this is a mass of cells that are present in one location. There's limitations to how CAR T cell immunotherapy works against these solid tumors. They've gone through different iterations and generations of CAR T cells. And one of the generations is that when they tweak, so like Nikki said, when they take the immune cells out of the patient's blood and tweak the immune cells, they also add in some other factors that not just use the T cells themselves to target the cancer cells, but also help attract other immune cells, so that you have this additional effect on top of the T cells that you're reintroducing back into the patient themselves. So first you've got the T cells that you take from the patients and make them target the cancer cells, but also in this new fourth generation of CAR T cells, what they do is add on these extra factors so that the T cells also release other, the proteins that attract immune cells to that cancer site. So that helps boost your other immune cells in the blood that you're not directly tweaking to help target the cancer cells. So we think the best use of what we can find is to what we aim to look at the factors in the glial cells in the gut that are important for communicating with the immune cells. So we think that if we use these factors, we can also put them into these new generation of CAR T cells to help boost that immune response. And we think that would be the best use of what we're researching at the moment. It will be an immediate therapy that we could go towards.
That's amazing. So we're double boosting essentially your own blood to fight the brain cancer. Has this been done anywhere else in the world, or are you collaborating internationally, or is this something we're doing first in Australia?
So this idea of this fourth generation of CAR T cells, that is happening around the world. So that's being used for looking at, so it's sort of under clinical trials or under investigation for several different cancer types. But currently, currently probably not for brain cancer as yet. Actually, I have to check on that. But there are a number of groups in Australia looking at CAR T cell therapy for brain cancer, and we hope to collaborate with them so that we can apply our knowledge with their experience in generating CAR T cells to actually get to the end goal.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, won't it? Absolutely. Particularly as we say, there's 1,700 people a year that suffer from brain cancer. Absolutely. I have a question, and just a reminder, if anyone has questions, please drop them in the chat for me. Bit off track here, but someone has asked me, if they look at what they eat and manage that, does that mean they're less likely to get brain cancer?
Good question. That's a tricky one. Brain cancer specifically, I don't think anyone's done any studies on that, but there has been a lot of research into what you eat influences your chances of getting cancer overall, and I think there is a lot of evidence that it is important. Of course, that's a whole population basis, not a person-to-person individualized responses. But yeah, there's a lot of work on how because the ability of the immune cells to find cancer cells in your body and just make general surveillances throughout your whole body, and what you eat and is important for the microbes in your gut, which is important for handling how much your immune system works. So there is definitely that connection there, and I think a lot of work into how eating a better diet, and I don't quite there's different types of better diets, I have to say. How that actually, how that does have a connection with your microbiome and the immune system, and consequently how what your chances of getting cancer.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. One of our other researchers, Dr. Shafiq, he's looking at uterine cancer, and he's studying the link between obesity and uterine cancer. And essentially, he says that the sugar feeds cancer cells. So the more sugar you have, essentially, the cells love, like us, the cells love sugar as well. So unfortunately, it's a bit of a negative for everyone with the sweet tooth. But yeah, he's absolutely looking at the impact of diet and obesity on uterine cancer as well. So it's fascinating. So you've got this hunch, you're doing tests now. What happens next? Do you test it on models, animal models? Do you test it on humans? What's the plan?
So firstly, we want to test the factors we find on immune cells themselves. So if we just, well, what we're aiming to do is take immune cells from the brain, the gut, and just naive immune cells that would be floating around in our blood, and see, well, what are the differences between factors released by glial cells in the gut versus glial cells in the brain. So we want, and I think it's important that we test the 3 different types of immune cells, because if it turns out that the glial cells in the gut just have an effect on the immune cells in the gut, then we probably aren't going to go as far with using those in terms of treating brain cancer. So yeah, our first test would be a very in vitro culture system, where we just take the cells and culture them under these different conditions.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you, and it's very exciting that you're that close to to this as well. I talked about how here at Cure Cancer we fund innovation, and our whole core of being over the last 55 years is to make sure we fund young researchers and early career researchers. Could you just talk a little bit about what that funding has meant to you and the importance of it?
Oh, it's been amazing. So it's been amazing to have this opportunity to have this funding to actually pursue our idea. I think when we had this idea, it was very blue sky. Nobody had really looked at this before. Nobody had, there's no publications on looking at the link between the glial cells in the gut versus gliomas in the brain. So that's the most malignant form of brain cancer. So we weren't, we're just stoked to be able to actually get this research off the ground and start pursuing start pursuing this work at all. I think it is tough for a lot of early career researchers, because when you go into the traditional system of the National Health and Medical Research Council or the Australian Research Council, so they're the 2 main funding bodies in Australia, a lot of them want to see evidence that you can carry out this research. So to a early career researcher like myself, if I haven't had a research grant previously, it's kind of hard to prove that you can carry out research by yourself, and you can have an idea and know what the steps are to pursuing that idea in a research lab. So having this award from Cure Cancer has been absolutely amazing for me to actually get this project off the ground, and then also try to grow this research to get more funding since then.
Yeah, look, you're doing an absolutely amazing job. And for the team at DS, just to understand, last year, only 5% of applicants were funded by the government. So this is a huge issue that we have in Australia. So for us to be able to fund young researchers, and I think the analogy is a bit like you leave school and you can't get a job because you don't have experience, or you go to uni and they won't give you a job. And it's the same as you guys. You've got these brilliant ideas, but because you haven't had millions of dollars funded through you and all these results, no one will give you a chance. So, you know, as we've just heard, Marlene's work is phenomenal. And, you know, you're so close to having a discovery that hasn't been done for brain cancer before. So it's really exciting. It's a tough world, the research world. For those that don't know, you know, you spend most of your time applying for grants. You've just come out of the season. You know, you can spend months applying for grants and just to be knocked back. What motivates you to keep going, Marlene? Why do you carry on being a researcher?
That is a tough question coming out of grant writing season. But it's exciting. It's great to do something that has never been done before. I know that we're making something that would be useful and helpful to other people. I think that it does require a bit of stubbornness and persistence. Actually, probably a lot of stubbornness and persistence, but it's where we really enjoy what we're doing, and we really hope that what we're doing can make a big difference. So that's something that really helps during those times when you're writing grants at 3 a.m. So
yeah, look, it's really tough. But you know, to your point, and you know, I used to be in the corporate world before I moved into fundraising, and in the corporate world, you've got a bit of IP, you just don't share it with anyone. But it's completely the opposite, because the findings that you have now are going to go around the world to help cancer patients globally. So, I mean, that must be phenomenal to think that you are changing the course of brain cancer research.
Yeah, we really hope so. We really want to do something that achieves something in terms of bettering health. I think, yeah, it's, and it is amazing how easy it is to share news and research. I actually just came back from a conference in Italy that was fantastic, but also just amazing to be able to talk to other researchers who are very open with sharing what they found. And this is something that I really enjoy about our field, and also the work that we're doing now with Cure Cancer.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Just before we wrap up, just a last call for questions. If anyone has some, just please drop them in the chat now. So what are your hopes for the future, Marlene, with your work? Once you've done this piece, where to next?
Oh, good question. It's so we've I guess we've got a number of different research trajectories in our lab. We've got a few different projects going, some of which are still centered around gut health. And I think what we really want to look at is, what we want to pursue a bit further is how this immune interaction in the gut could be important, not just for brain cancer, but also those other types of cancers that we discussed that are present in the gut. So things like colon cancer and gastric cancer, that we hope that this increased immune response that we can hopefully trigger can help not just brain cancer, so not just one type of cancer, but other cancers that are present in the gut as well.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, that would be phenomenal, wouldn't it, to be able to treat multiple types of cancer. Well, I've got one question here about the immunotherapy and the CAR T cells. So does that mean that hopefully in the future, people will not need to have chemotherapy on their brain tumors if your research works?
Yeah, I think somebody, so there's a great analogy that somebody had, is that, chemotherapy is kind of, it's a very broad acting chemical that is actually quite bad for your body. So somebody had the analogy that, okay, if you have a weed in your garden, chemotherapy is sort of like applying something that kills almost all the plants in your garden, including the weeds, but it also destroys a lot of the healthy cells that are present. Whereas something like the more personalized treatments that like a lot of researchers are looking into, like immunotherapy, is more targeted. So, instead of just applying this, instead of bleaching your whole garden, what you're applying is something that's a bit more targeted just for the weeds and keeps, the rest of your healthy plants and your healthy cells untouched.
Yeah, look, that's a brilliant analogy. Orazio, who's also one of our brain cancer researchers, he talks very much about, he looks at children, and when you're 15 months old and getting chemotherapy, not only impacts the cancer, but it's impacting your growth, it's your heart, it's your brain. It's actually having, and a lot of people die from the complications of the impact of chemotherapy, let alone the cancer. So for you to be able to have this treatment and hopefully find some success in your research, I mean, that would be wonderful for patients going through what is a very brutal treatment at the moment as well.
I think, unfortunately, chemotherapy is the best that we have for a lot of different cancers, but it is changing, and I think there has been a lot of movement in this area and in cancer research in general. So I think it's amazing what everyone's been able to do. It's really taking steps forward.
Look, it's phenomenal, and thank you for you and your team's work. It's very exciting that you're that close to finding an alternative to chemo. My final question to you is, what can we do to help support you more?
It's been actually just having you guys here has been a phenomenal amount of support. Being able to access grants from Cure Cancer has been amazing to me as an early/mid-career researcher now, and there's more awareness around how difficult it is for research to be going in Australia is a really important step. And of course, just a bit more security around being able to apply for grants and get funding to actually continue this research is something that would be really amazing to going forwards. I mean, like Nikki said, the funding rates from the NHMRC and ARC are pretty abysmal right now. So I think a lot of researchers are leaving Australia and actually leaving research. So it's amazing to have somebody else who's actually interested in the research that everyone is doing and help make that happen.
Yeah, look, you couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Marlene, for your time. In wrapping up, just a summary. So currently 1,700 people a year get brain cancer. Only 1 in 5 survive, sadly. And at the moment, the best treatment we have is chemotherapy. But Marlene and her wonderful team are very close to having a look at an alternative that hopefully after trials, clinical trials, if successful, can then go out to the broader community to be used as an alternative therapy for those suffering from brain cancer. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for sharing your session here today, Marlene. It's really appreciative. Please don't give up. I know research is tough, but my God, you guys have come so far, and we'd love to be able to continue to support you if you can. Absolutely. Thank you to Erin and the team at DAIS as well. If you do have any questions, please let us know, and we'd be happy to help you. I know some of you are down in Melbourne, where Marlene is as well. So we do offer lab tours and pieces like that if you are interested in seeing what goes on in these wonderfully complicated but interesting labs as well. So I hope, sorry, Marlene?
Absolutely. Hit me up for a tour.
There you go, the offer's out there, and we also can do the same for those in Sydney too. Thank you all for coming along. I hope you found that informative. I think it's always great to hear from the researcher what they're doing, and it's wonderful work. And my only wish is that you're more widely recognised for what you do, because you're achieving great things. So thank you, everyone. I wish you a good afternoon, and I'll end the talk there. Thank you. Thanks, Marlene.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you. Okay, goodbye.
Thanks.